Hi, what's going on guys? It's Almond. Welcome back to another Wizard101 video. In today's video, I want to go over another topic that has recently been surfaced, and that's been talking about the AOE changes. I know a lot of people have like very different opinions on the AOEs being basically PvP banned and how that affects raids and challenge mode, everything like that. And a lot of those are actually getting lifted due to a lot of feedback and many other reasons. So we'll talk about that in the video and give you guys my opinion. So if you do enjoy this type of content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff, and let's get into it. So when it comes to AOEs being nerfed, right, they weren't really nerfed per se. So for example, Fire Dragon and Meteor, you can still use these in regular tier content. So regular tier content would be questing, farming key bosses, or just farming just in general, like maybe like you're farming for like a stitch gear or something like that, just regular tier content, right? So anything that's like casual play, stuff like that, right? Including Darkmoor, including like those level 100 or like the other dungeons, you can still use those, right? So it didn't affect those types of content. Now, when it comes to PvE, it did, or certain types of PvE, such as challenge mode. Challenge mode, you could not use any of these spells because they were considered an AoE. Yes, Sun Serpent, it does a single target, but after it does the single target, it does an AoE on the enemies. So that's why this was also banned, along with some other spells as well that were 10-bit. And a lot of people had very much concerns about that, because how are they going to be able to do challenge mode or raids, right? But honestly, I don't think having it banned in raids doesn't affect it as much, especially in raid 1. For example, in the Void raid, we don't really use AoEs. If you think about it, yes, we did use the Dragoon amulets, that the 4-pip Dragoons on left side, but you can just circumvent that. So it doesn't ruin your strats because you can still carry AoEs if you wanted to. So that's about it. Raid 1 is completely fine. So if they unban AoEs and they just ban the Dragoon amulets and that's it, raid 1 is still completely fine. All right, you can still use your auras on your pets and stuff like that. You can still use reinforce. You can still use all that. So raid 1 is completely just, well, it's there. It's cool. No one's going to be like, well, this is too hard, I don't want to do it anymore. Everyone's just gonna be wanting to do raid 2, which is the Azteca raid, and no one's gonna want to do raid 1. But if they make it so AoEs are unbanned in that type of content, then it's fine. You know, people are still gonna be able to do raid 1 in general. And even then, it wouldn't be drastic to the point where it's like it's unbeatable. Raid 1 will still be beatable. But now if we're talking raid 2, for example, a lot of people were saying, oh well, right, you know, these should be unbanned, it's literally unplayable, stuff like that. But if you think about it, right, it won't affect it too much, depending on your strats, whatever your team is going for, right? The AoEs won't make that big of a difference. In raid 1, yeah, it might help a lot, but in raid 2, no one really goes for AoEs. If you think about it, even if AoEs are unbanned, no one really goes for them. But if they do unban it, people are going to be using certain things. Instead of using Dragoon amulet, people are going to start socketing on the Morgant jewel. Some people are going to be socketing on the Orthoris jewel because it does more damage than the actual spell. People are going to do other things to basically circumvent that. We're going to go back to using squalls. People are still going to use squalls on right side, so squalls is not going to be to the point where it's like unusable. They're still going to be usable. There's a lot of things that fall underneath the AoE category. The one thing I'm not too sure about, and I wasn't able to get an answer for, is AoE heals, or just heals in general on your team. If they're gonna lift the AoEs, what does that mean for heals? Will heals be exactly the same? Or are we still gonna be able to use Unicorn? Or are we still gonna be able to use Rebirth? Stuff like that, like Pigsy? That is what kind of like questions me a little bit, because if that's the case, then I feel like both of the raids are kind of fine regardless, even though you don't really need a heal on raid 1 on left side. You just go for goon, just spam, you literally just spam Dragoon, right? That was the whole meta on left side. But on right side, you do tend to sometimes heal with Dryad and stuff like that. And in the main fight, it would be nice to just use a Pigsy just in case, in my opinion at least. But if that's getting lifted, well, Pigsy's still useful. And on top of that, the top path of Pigsy will be back. So you could use that as well and not have to worry about animation time on the hot or on the hots, because now you're just going for like a straight up just heal. So, which you shouldn't rely on animation time in my opinion. But it, you know, it does save some runs in case, you know, if you are really going all the way to timer. So that's another thing. But I still think people will just use other things to just use the AOEs to their advantage. You know, some people might not pack the actual AOEs, but having sockets or even using certain things. So if people can socket on a rebirth, people might just do that because it's better than the actual rebirth. People are gonna socket on the Morgant jewels because it's kind of similar. It's better than a meteor, and it's like an in-between meteor and a dragoon amulet. It's like that in-between part. So it would still be beneficial to certain people. People will actually use that, surprisingly. And there's some other ones as well, right? And dual schooling options will be viable too. There's some other strategies such as using the Frosty Null Dragon, which not many people thought about, but you can use that as well. There's some other things that I feel like they aren't considering when they are lifting up these AOEs. And when it comes to challenge mode, I do understand. I know not many people are thinking about challenge mode, but we got to think about how it's affecting challenge mode as well. When it comes to challenge mode, Medulla fight is not too difficult without AOEs. Yeah, it would help out. It would speed up the fight drastically because the amount of HP they have. Especially, it's like, I think it's like 20k or something like that, and the boss has like 125k. So yes, it does speed up that fight. The Triton fight, I don't think you need AOEs due to the fact that you just go for a single target hit, and then if there's minions, you could have just used the split damage mechanic from the meteor, or in case somebody had a shad and you didn't get hit with the lasers, you could use the shad splitting mechanic and just split between those 3 enemies and you would be fine, right? Because it actually made people want to use a divide mechanic for once. Before, people just didn't care about it. Like, when's the last time someone's actually used the divide mechanic to help you? With AOEs being banned, it made people think, okay, maybe I should be using these divide mechanics and stuff like that. Yeah, you could single target each of the minions, but dividing actually helped out if you had the good stats. That is another thing to consider. But when it comes to Hall of Heroes and that challenge mode, I don't know how they're going to revamp it completely, because the last time I did Hall of Heroes, it was very buggy. There's so many cheats going on. I'll have that video out soon, just because I know we're never going to get that version of Hall of Heroes ever again. But it was just such a fun thing to do, and honestly, I need to edit that up and post that out for you guys, due to the fact that how many cheats were activating at once is just crazy to think about. So, but when it comes to Hall of Heroes, yes, these AOEs will be beneficial to the people who are trying to finish Hall of Heroes, because due to the fact that there's 8 bosses and it took us 1 hour and 30, and we had access to AOEs, because how busted or not, it wasn't working as intended with all these cheats. You can use feints, you can use anything that was not PvP banned, or essentially anything that was PvP banned in your runs. So I was able to use like Meteor, we were able to use Raging Bull, all these like AoE spells, and for other schools too, of course. Like, you were able to use Goon when you weren't intended to. So it does help out the Hall of Heroes fight, but I think once they fix the cheats and everything like that, I think that fight will be just as fine. It won't be that big of an issue, but we'll have to wait and see whenever it gets patched, and I'll definitely do a run and see what I think about it. But yeah, it's good that they're reworking these things, but I feel like for certain parts of the raid, people are just going to start socketing on stuff, and that just literally circumvents like a lot of this stuff. And certain pets as well, there's certain pets that you can actually use that give an AoE and that are a little bit better and help contribute to you speeding up the fight. But I still think single target's going to be the wave in the raid from my experience. We'll have to see what people think about strategy wise whenever they release the patch. Who knows if whenever the next patch comes out, if that's going to be included in it. I have no clue, but I would assume it might. And if it isn't, it'll probably be in the next patch. But I feel like it'll be drastically changing up some strategies in certain ways. It just depends on how people test it. Another thing is that the auras. A lot of people were talking about the auras that were being casted in the raids. It could be any aura. It doesn't have to be Frenzy. It can be Infal. It can be Reinforce. I know Reinforce was very meta in raid 1, but you couldn't cast any aura in the raid. If you did any aura, you basically just died. I don't have a clip of it because we already knew about it from seeing it happen to other people, because I was able to raid, but I raided kind of late than everyone else. So some people already told me like, hey, don't cast aura, don't cast aura, because you just got nuked. You literally just got nuked. But if they were to make auras viable in raid 2, I don't think I would want that to happen, because if that's the case, what's stopping people from using frenzy? What's stopping people from using, for example, the reinforced pet, which, like, for example, just use this one because it's the base. What's stopping people from using reinforce again? And then on top of that, if reinforce is not viable, right, people could just use infal, because these bosses, from my experience, have a lot of res. And what's stopping us from having more pierce, even though the pierce is capped? So I kind of don't want to see that happen. I hope auras just in general stay banned in raids, or just in raid 2 at least. Raid 1, I'd say reinforce is fine, because a lot of strats are like go based upon that. But you don't need a PvP ban auras, just because we honestly just need 2 separate tags. We need a PvP ban, we need a raid ban, some kind of stamp of like that's along those lines. But however they do it, I'm not too sure. I think time will tell. I don't think they'll implement that system right away, because it's gonna take a long time. I don't expect them to release a patch where it's like, okay, well, we have a separate stamp now for raids and PvP. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. So that's why they're going with like the AOEs, just unbanning them. It's fine, it is what it is. And then later down the line, they'll add like raid specific bans and PvP specific bans, because I think that's what caused a lot of issues. Like both communities mix matching with each other, like saying, oh, I actually use this in my PvP strategy, etc. And then, well, people in raids are like, oh, well, that's fine. So it's just like a clash between 2 communities at the same time. But like I said with the auras, I hope that they make it so raid 2 you can still, oh, you can't aura. I would want to make it so you can't aura in raid 2. Raid 1, fine, that's okay. But raid 2, I do not want to see people using auras at all. Especially reinforced. I want to see different strats for both raids, and not just being the same reinforce, AOE, reinforce it. Nah, I like having things different. Because if raid 1 and raid 2 are exact copies, just, you know, just more moving around, then is it really unique in a sense? That's why I'm glad that we weren't able to use auras, because it made people actually think outside the box and stuff like that. I know I'm not including all the AOEs, like I can go through AOEs for every school, but you guys get the gist of it, right? Like certain AOEs were banned for that reason. So we'll see what happens with all these being lifted, all the other AOEs being lifted. I'm not too sure about AOE heals. Like I don't have any on my, I don't even think I have some on me. But I don't know how it would affect, oh, I guess unicorn. I don't know how, if these would be lifted at all. I have zero clue. My assumption is they would be, just because the fact that if you're going to be lifting up the AOE hits, I would assume that you're lifting up the, you know, the heals as well. And that will probably change up some strats as well. And then the other thing is the auras. I feel like it's good, and they probably will make it so like you don't just insta die. In my defense, you still wouldn't want an aura, but they'll probably make it so like instead of it one-shotting you, it's just going to be like a regular supernova. To me, that would just make the most sense. I don't have any supernovas on me, but the aura pop essentially, because if they make it so you one-shots you kind of just have to restart the raid if someone's brand new. But I feel like raids, you should, the first couple times, it's okay, right? It's okay that you didn't know, but then eventually just don't put it in your deck at all. Simple solution. But those are my opinions on the changes that are coming to Test Realm and eventually Live Realm, right? Test Realm, you guys got to keep in mind, not all this stuff comes to Live Realm immediately. Just because certain things are changing in Test Realm, that doesn't mean it's automatically going to affect Live Realm. But that's everything from me, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff. Be on the lookout for more videos. I have like a couple videos I still need to edit, but this one I kind of took more as a priority because of the change that's coming soon, so more people can know about it. It's information that'll help you guys with the raids and see how your strats are going to work. So that's it. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.